You are listening to the Central Indiana Sports Report, episode 135.2. Colts Talk with Anderson Herald sports editor and CNHI Colts beat reporter George Bremer.
You're listening to the Central Indiana Sports Report with your host, Greg Mengelt.
Welcome back, George. It's 2 weeks in a row. Not a very fun podcast to do, although a lot of interesting things coming out of the Colts right now. The thing I want to say is my hope in the future coming into last week was Anthony Richardson, and now even that seems like when you look at your games in your first two seasons, is that someone you can rely on going forward? Seems like a mess.
It's a major concern, and now this back injury, it starts to sound really concerning. I mean, you're talking about something that he says he's been dealing with since eighth grade. It's not always been as severe as it was last week, but there's something, there may be a disc issue involved, and you get started getting into these back problems. You just see what that means for athletes in every sport across the board, and then multiply that for football. I think you're at a point where availability has always been a concern, but I think it's a major, major issue right now.
Yeah, to the point where maybe you go find another quarterback.
It doesn't seem like they're there yet. I mean, it's something that I would definitely be considering.
Replace him necessarily. I mean, a backup plan.
Yeah, I have felt for a while, I don't know what the Colts are going to do. There's a lot of questions about who's going to be making those decisions, and when they're going to be made. But I've felt for a while now, even before the back issue flared up to this degree. But I really feel like you've got to bring in legitimate competition. And by that, I mean not Joe Flacco, not Gardner Minshew, not a veteran who is not a long-term answer.
Exactly.
If you can find a guy who's young enough to have more of his career ahead of him than behind him, who you feel like can come in and compete, I think that's best case scenario.
Absolutely. I think the injury, and particularly when you're talking about something like a back, really changes the equation completely. Like I said, it seems like whatever happens between now and we get a decision on what's going to be happening with the general manager. Not a lot of hope. A very bleak situation in Indianapolis right now.
I think that's the most disappointing thing. In other years past where you've had something kind of go wrong, there was always something that you were hanging on to. I mean,
right.
They had a losing season in 2017, but Andrew Luck was potentially coming back, and he did. And you went to the playoffs in 2018. And then after Luck retired, you had a losing season in 2019. There was a lot of thought that they were going to go find a new quarterback. They got Phillip Rivers. They went to the playoffs. After the collapse in 2021, there was going to be a new quarterback coming in, a new head coach. And there's always been something like that. And if even last year you fall short of the playoffs, but there was hope with the rookie that you had that he's going to take a step in the second year. Now it's hard to really pin anything like that, going into 2025. I don't know what area of the team you feel like could legitimately improve. I'm not talking about surprises. Those happen all the time. Maybe Anthony Richardson comes out as completely healthy next year, looks like he's more than worthy of the number 4 pick, shows all those flashes come together. That'd be great, but it's not something you can count on or something that gives you a lot of excitement for 2025. I don't know right now what you do pin your hopes on for next season.
I would guess that it would be a new coach and a whole new direction. But again, you've talked about this. Not a lot of word coming out of Indianapolis about what's going to happen. Of course, still another week to go in the regular season, but you would think you'd start hearing something.
Yeah, I think Monday's going to be interesting. It always is when you don't make the playoffs. And I think it's going to be really interesting this year because do they make a decision on Chris Ballard? Do they make a decision with Shane Steichen? Do they split the two of them? There is some talk about that, It's going to be really interesting to see. I think at the very least, you're going to have to see a massive shakeup on the roster. I just don't see running it back like they did a year ago. it was a questionable decision coming into this year. It's outright negligence if it happens again.
Yeah. All right. So, how much college football playoffs are you watching, and how much mock drafts have you been looking at as your attention kind of changes to next year?
Yeah, usually I would be a lot more into the mock draft situation, and right now I just even that there's not a whole lot of excitement because you're going to be picking, I don't know, 15 somewhere in that range,
Yeah.
um, and that's a really bad thing. Like normally you'd say, hey, root for the Jaguars on Sunday. There are so many teams with 3 or 4 losses this year. They can't really go that much further down at
Yeah.
this point.
Yep.
I think like 12 is about the best they could pick, and even that I think would take some doing. It's like the Bears, I think, have 4 wins that are picking ninth. That's
Yeah.
almost unheard
Nuts.
of.
Yeah.
It's been such a bottom-heavy year in that regard.
And top heavy.
Really weird. Yeah, top-heavy. I mean, you've got some really good teams and some really bad teams. And I think it leaves a team like the Colts in a bad situation because it's now. I think the good news as the draft pertains is that everybody can use help at the premier positions. You're not getting a quarterback, so don't. That's not even really on the table. So where they're picking, maybe you can fill one. Maybe you can get a tight end. I don't know where like Tyler Warren's going to go from Penn State.
Love
That's
him.
maybe he's in that range. We'll have to see how that goes. Maybe you could get a linebacker who could really help this team out, like a safety. They've got some positions of need that could fall. Like I wonder, Xavier Watts from Notre Dame, where does he go? He's probably a top 10 guy, but is it another year where the defenders fall a little bit? Does he get into that range? Can they grab a guy like that? That's where the intrigue is for me in the draft.
Well, there's not a unit that they cannot afford to upgrade. Not that
That's also true.
Yeah, but there aren't a lot of like true weaknesses on the roster, I don't think. But there's also nowhere that can't use upgrades.
I think that helps you too, because you can really go best player available at 12, 13, 14, 15, wherever they're at, and not feel like you were passing on something. Because you're right, pretty much any area on this team, you could. I probably would say drafting a running back would probably be a mistake. The other 21 positions, I would say go for it.
All right, let's look a little bit around the NFL if you don't mind for a minute. Sure looks like the AFC is the Chiefs, the Bills, or the Ravens to win. Is that how you look at it?
Yeah, I don't know that there's really a dark horse out there. A lot of years you'd love to find somebody else. The one team that could maybe play a little bit of spoiler might not even make the playoffs. If the Bengals get in, they could be interesting. I don't think he'll win the conference because I don't think he can put that many games together. But they're the kind of team that could win like a 45-42 shootout, knock one of those contenders out.
Absolutely. I guarantee Buffalo does not want to see the Bengals in that spot.
That's for sure.
All right, and then NFC looks like the Lions, Eagles. Do you believe in the Vikings? Or do you think the NFC can compete with the Chiefs or Bills?
Yeah, I think those top 2 teams can. The thing with the Lions is health.
Yeah.
I mean, you feel like the Detroit fans have been snake bitten for so long. They look like the best team in the NFL at the midseason. They keep losing major players.
Yeah, we're in double
and
digits now.
I just don't know how long that can hold out at a championship level. They're obviously still winning games. Philadelphia is a really balanced team. I think their defense scares you at times against some of the top teams, but
and that defense, those corners just get better every week. Those rookies in the defensive backfield.
I think they're a threat to win it all. I mean, I can see them beating Kansas City or Baltimore or Buffalo in the Super Bowl. I just feel like a Buffalo-Detroit Super Bowl would be great for America.
That would be fun.
Everybody would love to see that.
Are you more or less interested in seeing the Chiefs go for a three-peat? How does that sit with you?
I mean, history is always – I think that's always fun to see. If that's on the table, it's going to add a lot to the game. And I know most people will be rooting against it happening, but hey, it's still going to be eyeballs on it. People watch Super Bowl no matter what, but that would be a really great storyline in my mind just because it's never happened. And anytime you get into a situation where something's never happened, I just don't know. I hate to ever underestimate Kansas City because I feel like we do that every year and then they show you, that you were very, very mistaken.
Yes.
But I just feel like I do feel like Buffalo's got the momentum this year. Like if I had to pick right now, I feel like they're the favorite in the AFC, not because they do anything particularly well. It just feels like Josh Allen's in a mode right now where I will take him in a close game against just about anybody, including Patrick Mahomes at this point.
Yeah, but that's what I said last year, George.
And
And they
and then
look.
looks what happened. And that's the thing. Like Baltimore, I get concerned with because I think when the Ravens are at their best, they're the best team in the NFL. When they're playing at their peak, I feel like they're the best team in the NFL. But they have so many dips that
Yes,
you can't trust it. Does that make sense?
it does. It's because against really good defenses that mix things up, Lamar Jackson has a little bit of trouble with accuracy. He's got that great downfield vision, but if you can defend him right, he sometimes gets. I don't want to say confused is the right word, but it gets what's the word? Um, it throws him off,
Yeah,
and
and I think he tries to do too much at times. I think he puts that Superman cape on,
yeah,
a lot of quarterbacks do that.
yeah,
Because they feel the need of like, oh, I better make a two touchdown play here. Well, that doesn't exist. You might not want to work on that, but I do think that's where the AFC gets really interesting because Kansas City is going to bring it every week, and
yeah,
they've shown it again and again. But I also feel like the one kryptonite they've had is the Bengals. That's why I keep wondering.
yeah.
Cincinnati's that one sort of wild card in there that if they sneak in, if you're the Chiefs, you may want Denver to win because
Yes.
probably along with Buffalo, they don't really have much interest in seeing the Bengals hang around in that AFC bracket.
Thank you so much again to George Bremer for joining us to talk about the Colts on a weekly basis. Always enjoy the discussion. And thank you for listening. Please go right now and like, subscribe, or follow us so you don't miss a single segment. Don't forget, we're now on YouTube, on SoundCloud, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Amazon Music, or YouTube. Just search Central Indiana Sports Report, and it's easy to find. And please help spread the word about the Central Indiana Sports Report by telling a friend. Just copy and paste this episode, send it, text it, email it. Just do it.
Central Indiana Sports Report is a product of ITG Media. And I love Greg.